you will probably not be using iOS 17 to its fullest potential. And let me tell you why. First of all, you most likely don't have top-of-the-line, most expensive 14 Pro and Max iPhones. Second, you also need to buy at least one MagSafe nightstand that is gonna cost you additional 30 to a couple $100. And lastly, most of the people around you that you interact with on the daily basis will also need to possess this latest software. Then, and only then, will you use iOS 17 to the fullest. Let me explain. So we live in a period where phones in general have gotten very mature, and that stands for both hardware and software. Phone cameras are so amazingly capable that they're getting neck and neck with professional mirrorless and DSLR cameras. Almost the entire front part of the phone is the display that is fully visible outside with more than 2000 nits of peak brightness. Batteries last at least a full day or even more in some cases. The phone operating systems are becoming very mature as well. So in this era, every new generation of the phone is just a small upgrade compared to the previous one. It's been like this for years with both Samsung. I mean, just look at their Galaxy Fold. It's practically becoming the same phone each year, as well as the iPhone, because since the 11, there were some pretty significant changes, but they were very small when you compare them year over year. Never again will we have a gigantic upgrade like the 5S was, for example, with a 64-bit processor and the introduction of Touch ID, or the 10 with the whole new and finally good-looking design. But this mundane, boring trend of small upgrades tends to get interrupted every once in a while. Like the Android 11, for example, that introduced the entirely new and more friendly UI, or with the Apple M1, that was the first Apple Silicon processor, where the CPU performance tripled and the battery life doubled, which was insane. And well, when it comes to iOS 17, it's a bit of both. It's just a regular small upgrade with some improvements to the iMessage, voice input, AirDrop, Safari upgrades, and more. But if you're in this tiny group of enthusiasts that want best of the best and have the most expensive top-of-the-line iPhones, so you need to have the latest Pro iPhone, which is at least $1,000, then also have one or more MagSafe stands around the house, and also have a lot of people around you with the iOS 17 on their phones, it instantly becomes a smart home hub or a photo collage frame, a virtual business card, and one of the coolest upgrades that Apple has put out in years. So let's start off with the features that are exclusive to this tiny group of people. Your phone detects as soon as it's on a MagSafe stand and turned sideways, and when it's placed in that position, you get this entirely new UI where you can actually do and see a lot of things. You can place and rearrange the widgets on it to see your events for the day, or how much your devices are charged up, or how much you slept, and then also scroll between different watch faces. The sensors in the pill hole detect when the room brightness passes a certain threshold, so everything becomes red, just like the night mode you have on the Apple Watch Ultra. So you can practically have this the whole night long beside your bed. But the best feature is that you can also interact with it. And here's what I mean. If you're using the Apple HomeKit, you can turn different lights on or off around your house, or ask Siri for anything, and it will all show up in this cool new way across the whole screen. Like asking for the timer if you're in the kitchen, or what the weather is gonna be like. So it's definitely my favorite iOS 17 feature, but then you start to wonder. Okay, so Apple started differentiating Pro and non-Pro iPhones more and more over the years, but it was almost entirely hardware features, like having a telephoto camera and a LiDAR sensor, or more screen brightness to be more visible outdoors with also 120Hz refresh rate. And now on the 14, even the chip itself is different. The only software features that they could have easily put on the non-Pro iPhones but just chose not to were the ProRAW shooting format on the iPhone 12 and ProRes for video only 1 year after that. But that, you can argue, is a very niche thing that even a small amount of Pro users will fully utilize. But the standby mode is a headliner of what's new with iOS 17. And they not even once mentioned that it's only arriving to 2 existing models. Oh, and guess what? Even the iPhone 15 models that are non-Pro still won't have a 120Hz ProMotion, let alone the always-on display that is needed for something like this. So that really makes me think about the future of the iPhones. It's clearly not even worth buying non-Pro models anymore, because more and more features are becoming exclusive to the Pros. I mean, at this exact moment, you shouldn't even consider buying iPhone at all, because 15 is right around the corner, where after a very disappointing regular 14, they'll finally make some actual effort on making that difference more narrow. Because you'll have a dynamic island across the whole lineup, which is my absolute favorite feature on the 14 Pro, apart from the always-on display. The main camera will also be 48 megapixels, so it will also act as a 2x telephoto lens. You can check out my 14 Pro and the 13 series 1 year later videos that will all be down in the description, but yeah, back to iOS 17. Like I said, in this standby mode you can interact with widgets, and I know that if you're watching this from an Android, you're like, you couldn't even interact with widgets until now? iPhones didn't even have them until 3 years ago. But right now, I think they actually caught up to almost everything that Android has to offer, and then added some on top of that. And I've been using Android my whole life before eventually switching to the 13 mini less than 2 years ago. And each operating system has its good sides, it's just that for me, the whole Apple ecosystem is a thing of beauty and makes my life so much easier. So yeah, finally completing my reminders without entering the actual app or playing music, controlling the lights, all from the home screen is just an addition to already very mature operating system. There's now also more cool implementations for the dynamic island. It can show you how much will it take for your food or Uber to arrive, following game results and more. Improved AirDrop will now continue to transfer files across cellular if you get too far away from the other device. So now entering into a category of iPhone to iPhone interaction. Apart from the standby mode, two of the biggest updates are for contacts and messages. I don't know for you guys, but for me, the iMessage and the iPhone keyboard were always kind of bad. And this was a much needed improvement to both of those. The apps are now all in this side menu that you open by tapping the plus button, and it just looks way less messy and cluttered. The autocorrect that was always kind of trash is now significantly better, and my favorite thing is the dictations. It listens and predicts your words way better and is something that I use all the time. Most of all for writing scripts for these videos for you guys. And also you can finally just swipe to reply. The fact that this wasn't available until now is just mind-blowing. And when it comes to contacts, you can set up your virtual business card in a way. And just by placing two iPhones together, you get this very sick animation and you exchange numbers and all the other information from your card with that person. Yet another very cool feature, but of course it will only be available if both of you are using the iOS 17. So the bottom line is this. There is a reason that Apple is by far the wealthiest company in the world. Not only do they have this amazing walled garden that is already way greener than all the other ones, because all the devices work together perfectly, and not just between your personal devices, but for other people's as well. But now, on top of that, only if you have the best of the best. So if you're just willing to pay a more premium ticket, you will be able to enjoy that garden to the fullest. It's like the most colorful of flowers, the longest vines, and the widest of trees are only available to be seen by those that are willing to pay extra, even if you were already in that walled garden to begin with. Something to think about. Thank you guys so much for watching until the end. You can check out all my other videos as well. If you want to support me more, you can become a channel member now and visit my Patreon and my website. Like always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in my next video.